Welcome to Mallett and Michelle on Dripping Springs, hosted by me, Michelle Lewis, and Steve Mallett. Hey, Steve, you know what I've figured out?
What's that, Michelle?
People want to see us fail. You know why?
Why?
I don't know. But let's disappoint them.
No, actually, you don't care.
I don't care.
Yeah.
But let's show them.
It's funny when we started this, how many people didn't wish us well.
No, but then I think they're surprised by the success of it all. And we've hired a new content creator.
Yep.
To
for
help
the marketing.
us. Yeah.
So we are changing things around a little bit. I want to do my Michelleism.
Oh,
and Michelle Lewis, who can't be killed, because if she could, she'd be dead already.
That's my favorite thing.
You
ever.
live life so freaking hard. Your body must every day go, stop.
Go to sleep.
Yeah, stop. And you just keep going and going and going.
It's the only way I know how to live.
Yeah. Like you eat stuff and you drink alcohol and like my body would just collapse if I treated it the way you treat yours.
Because food is life. I'm a big foodie.
Yep.
Right. And I do like to partake in the occasional cocktail or three.
Occasional?
Yeah, the occasional cocktail or three. But
I wouldn't be able to come to work on Monday if I drank the way you do on Sunday sometimes.
But I didn't drink yesterday
Well, that's good.
because I'm having surgery.
I was going to say,
Tuesday.
because you're having surgery, you probably want to take better care of the body today.
But you know what? I drink when I'm in the pool. That is my.
I could see that.
Yeah. So
especially this time of year when it's 1,000 degrees, like the surface of the sun.
yeah, I'm not like some raging.
I did make you sound like that, didn't I?
I know.
Yeah.
I just
Michelle stumbled in drunk this morning to the office.
I have
Sorry
a- I
if
have
she
a
made a
cup.
mistake.
It's not vodka. It's water. I
Yeah.
promise.
Hey, our guest today, Mary Jane Hetrick.
I'm very excited.
I know, me
To
too.
visit with her.
You and I will need to take a nap after visiting with her because she's a busy woman.
She is very, very busy, and she is also involved in the Patriots Hall, which is very near and dear
Patriots
to my heart.
Hall. She's the president of the school board. She sits on the board for Foster Village. She's an adjunct professor. I mean, geez, this woman's got it all going on. But she'll be in here in a little bit.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear that.
California, a couple days ago.
What's the most annoying sound in the world?
California. I'm from California.
Hey, California.
Yeah. You know what I was thinking was, here's a little tip for you new Californians. The second you get to Texas.
New Texans. Yeah.
Go down to the DPS, the Department of Motor Vehicles,
And get
what
your
you call
license
it, and
changed.
get a new license plate that
Yeah.
says Texas on it. That should be like, don't do anything else. Do that the first thing.
I told you my son's like kind of a little rock star in San Francisco
I know.
because he drives around with his Texas plates.
I know. Yeah. Why are you here in San Francisco, Texas? Yeah. So California, though, a couple days ago announced that you will not be able to buy a gas-powered car in California after 2035.
That sounds like a winner.
Yeah. And you know what Ford did that very same day?
Built a car that works.
No, still not doing that. No, their electric Mustang, which I guess has been a pretty big hit. They raised the price anywhere from $3,000 to $8,000 on the models. Yeah, $3,000 for some lower models and $8,000 for some higher.
Still not
models.
buying a Ford.
I'm with you. Yeah, I was reading about some of the reasons that this is not going to work the way that they think it's going to work, which cracks me up that some of these governments in some of these very poorly run states and cities, they're always saying science, but then they never consider science, actual facts when they make these policies.
It's, you know what I call them feel good mandates. They make people feel good, but they don't really do anything.
So there's the charging stations that they'll need. There are currently less than 10% of the amount of charging stations you'd need to have 100% electric vehicles in California. There's not enough electricity produced.
No.
If every car in California, even at the current rate, so we're talking 12 years from now, there'll be probably a lot more cars
They have
on the
those
road.
rolling brownouts. Well, if everybody's moving out of California, they
I know.
probably have.
Yeah, maybe they'll have plenty of electricity when everybody finally leaves. Turn the lights out when you leave. But yeah, so there's not enough electricity, and they're actually shutting down all the plants that make electricity, and they're trying to run everything off windmills and solar and all that. So, and that is not projected to be fixed by 2035.
So what are you going to do? You're just going to thumb it?
I guess, I don't know. Maybe they're trying to get everybody on the bullet train that goes up to Bakersfield or whatever. The other thing is electric cars are super expensive.
Very expensive. How are people going to charge them? Because a lot of the homes there in California are those older one-story ranch homes. I just see that they're going to have to need a full electrical upgrade within their own homes.
Yeah.
And I mean, giving you a $2,000-$3,000 credit is not going to mean anything, because if let's say the government, the state is giving you a $2,000 credit, well, the electrician now, where it did cost $2,000, is now going to charge you $5,000.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to fix that, but and then the minerals that go into making the batteries. I can't remember which one it is.
The lithium? No, is it lithium? I did see something about that.
Yeah, but they're all mined in China.
Oh.
So.
Well, we know why that is going to work.
I know.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so there's a chemical that you must have to make these batteries, and we don't control that. And so they're just that cost will probably continue to go up, especially when whoever provides that knows that they're the only place they can get it, and you have to buy an electric vehicle. But I'm just going to lump that into the bucket of more reasons to move out of California and move to Texas.
I saw a really, really bad movie this weekend called Nope. Have you heard of that movie? It was really, really bad. Don't see it.
But you watched it anyway.
I was in it to win it. I was like, this movie is the most awful movie. But anyways, it was about aliens, and when the aliens ever came near you, they would turn off the electricity. So they were trying to film the aliens, and so all the cameras and everything weren't working. So they had an old Hollywood guy that was using an electrical, or like a crank camera.
Yeah.
But then he ended up getting sucked up to the spaceship and died. So it didn't work anyway.
That sounds absolutely terrible.
I told Todd, I said, we are so, just general humankind right now is so dependent on electricity and digital software, digital devices, that
apps, phones,
the analog world is just going. Like, my daughter doesn't know how to read a secondhand watch. Like,
oh, I believe it. I think that goes along the lines of, when you make that roll down your window sign where you're like moving your hand back and forth. Kids look at you like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't know what that is.
Are we poor?
Yeah, I know. If the electric grid ever goes down, we are in big trouble.
Yeah, well, I mean, if Snowmageddon taught us anything, we are very unprepared.
True.
Thank goodness that we had gas, like, for us. And the electric starter wouldn't work, but I remember back from the days when I was a kid and you had to light the gas stove, you had to have matches to light it anyway.
That's true.
So, yeah. I'm surprised I had eyebrows my entire childhood.
Yeah. We went shooting a couple days ago at the range.
Oh my goodness, that was so much fun.
That was. I did not know that facility was as nice as it was.
That was the bougie range.
Yeah.
Boy, we went up but although we were treated, Paul Guerrero.
We got the super VIP
Yeah, we
treatment.
were VIP. We were up where Joe Rogan hangs out and our pew pew area. So
pew pew. Yeah, that building's 52,000 square feet.
Wow.
Yeah, they have 7,000 feet of retail for guns and ammo and accessories and stuff.
I kind of glided right by that.
Swooped.
I swooped
swang
right by that area because we were
headed for the fancy
snacks.
place. Yeah.
Did they have snacks?
Yeah, apparently. So Paul Guerrero, who was a guest a couple episodes ago, invited us to go. He's a member, and he says he sees celebrities there all the time. He sees Joe Rogan there quite a bit. I guess Joe Rogan goes there all the time.
My neighbors I love my neighbors. Love. And they're from California. So but they are precious to me. And Stu and Sylvia go up there all the time. Every Wednesday they're there. And she has taught me a lot about guns and not being afraid of them, because I mean, my stepfather was a CIA agent. And so I grew up with guns all the time. Of course, I couldn't get away with nothing because my stepfather was a CIA agent. But I learned through Paul's trip that I hate my gun that I have right now, and I love another gun that
it's really
shot.
pretty.
It is pretty.
It's
Tiffany
teal blue.
Hey, I bought based on aesthetics.
Yeah,
okay, not based on function.
Yeah, but the first time, it jammed a couple times.
Yes.
Like the first time you shot it, you got 3 shots off and it jammed.
You know what? I passed my CHL with that stupid gun, and
You're lucky.
and the instructor couldn't believe, even when he was shooting my gun, he couldn't believe that I was hitting the target because it was like shooting off a little bit, and I just started adjusting for where it was shooting.
So you shot that Sig Sauer 380 that Paul had.
Oh, that
little
was
small gun. That was really nice.
I want one so bad. Yeah.
I got to shoot Tate's AR-15.
There is a cool picture of you shooting that gun.
Yeah, you can. They captured the flash, that big, huge flash. It's about 1.5 feet across coming out of the muzzle.
I liked that picture.
Yeah. So I posted a video of that on Instagram.
Did you get trolled?
I totally did. I put if anybody knew me, they knew what was going on there. Paul Guerrero, I know him through our real estate business. He invited us there because he's an insurance agent. So I just titled it Real Estate and Guns because it was a business. It was basically a business thing.
That's what we do in Texas.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And, some guy in New Jersey, it was like New Jersey Mike something, like, got on me because like your title makes absolutely no sense. What does real estate have to do with guns? And then he goes on and then he said, I'm an X-ray technician and he says some X-ray thing, and see, nobody would understand what you're talking about. I'm like, I did not put it on there to make you happy about me, selling real estate and buying guns.
If you posted something eating a rib and you said real estate and ribs, the vegans would come after you. So
that's true.
You know what? It goes back to what I said. People want to see us fail, so let's disappoint them.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm doing my best, and you're doing your best every day to prevent that. I think I'm going to go see if the federal government will release or relieve some of my mortgage burden on my houses. What do you think?
I don't think it's going to happen, Steve. I think you're gonna be piss poor, disappointed.
I would like to see, even if they just give me 10 grand. It's like, it's debt. It's, I didn't have to take it on.
The loan is not being forgiven. The loan is being transferred to the taxpayers.
Well, exactly. So, but I don't really care, right? If they pay down $10,000 of my mortgage, I don't care who pays it as long as it's not me.
I got trolled on that exact subject, and someone told me that I don't care about the United States of America because the loan forgiveness plan is for the United States of the America.
I'm sorry, I do care about the United States of America, and I care about making a generation of kids and young people that don't know that you need to work for your own you-know-what. Mm-hmm. Nobody else should have to provide that for you. Go out and get a job. Yes.
You took a loan.
You know how much money I have borrowed to start this real estate business or to have my rental market business? I have borrowed hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years. And, I didn't have to do it, but I wanted to better myself in this great country.
Well, the White House was trolling other members of Congress about the PPE loans that were forgiven. But
I wasn't a big proponent of those.
You weren't from the very beginning. You weren't. You didn't ask for one, and you didn't get one.
No, I didn't. But going back now, and we're getting off on a rabbit trail here. But now, what we know about COVID, and was listening to a podcast this morning. The deaths. So overall deaths have increased since COVID, the shutdowns, because there were people that had cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and they weren't allowed to go. They weren't allowed to go get care, and so the death rates actually have increased. So, yes, I wasn't a big proponent of PPP money, but I was even more against shutting down our economy. So,
we're on some sort of list right now because right here in this little 2-minute segment, you have said COVID, federal government, and PPE.
Yeah, but and we try not to be too political on this show, but there's a couple things that the student loan forgiveness really just looks to me like
it's buying votes.
It's buying votes, and the thing I don't get about it is, it doesn't seem very astute politically because the people that they're buying votes from, they're going to vote that certain way they want them to vote already. Yeah. I don't think there's any conservative Republicans out there going, hey, I got $10,000 of my loan debt wiped away. I'm going to go vote for a Democrat. I don't understand. You're giving money to people that are already in your pocket. I don't want it to happen either way, but it doesn't seem very smart politically.
We live in an upside down world right now, Steve. Nothing makes sense to me. And then I always seem to go back to my military kid. And since we have Mary Jane coming on about Patriots Hall, you have kids, young adults who have devoted their life to the military life and Tate graduates in December with his neuroscience degree while being in the military.
That's awesome.
He gave of his time. Yep. He's working for them, the needs of the Coast Guard, whatever you may say. And many people have done that. He wasn't forced to do it, but he chose that avenue. Right. I have another one that went to trade school. Yep. Trade school, those loans aren't being forgiven,
No, that's right.
No,
that's right.
So it seems like a lot of, I hate to overuse this word, but the unfairness that is going on in this world. And, just because something benefits somebody else and it doesn't benefit me or my family doesn't necessarily, the fair.
This is one of those things where we're not upset about it because it doesn't benefit us, because I could care less about this. It actually hurts our country. You're teaching young people to think that the government should bail them out.
But where does it stop? That's where I want to know. Where does it stop? And where does it stop if someone has already paid off their loans, like three months.
I've got kids that went through college. I'm sure Colton would like to get a little bit of a rebate check because he doesn't have any student loans. But
I'm going to send you an invoice.
Yeah, I know. And kind of going on to Mary Jane Hetrick. Have you ever watched American Sniper about Chris Kyle?
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite movies, and I've actually taken the kids several times to go visit his grave.
You know what? I watched it this weekend. For two reasons. One, I saw it and then I thought that'd be a good thing because it's about Chris Kyle and his time overseas. And he was a true patriot. Anytime anybody ever asked him, he said, I would rather fight those guys over there than have them come to New York or California or, San Diego. And he was a true patriot. He gave everything for his country. It's a Clint Eastwood movie, American Sniper. If you're listening and you have not seen it, we saw it on Hulu this weekend. That's a fantastic movie. But there's a scene at the end, it actually kind of gets me right now just thinking about it, where the hearse carrying his body is going along the freeway.
In Dallas.
And there are thousands and thousands of Americans standing there with American flags. There are soldiers on the side of the road saluting. That patriotism I feel like it's starting to get lost in this country. Nobody thinks that this country, or not, some people don't think this country is worth fighting for. Yeah. That great man, not only did he fight for his country, he came back and helped these veterans. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, one of those veterans was so sick that he turned on him, killed him. But that goes right along with what Mary Jane is doing and the other people that support Patriots Hall, trying to support these veterans that come back, have these horrible experiences overseas, in these foreign wars, and they don't have the kind of help that they need.
If we've learned anything from the Vietnam War, that we had a generation lost on the aftercare help and the remnants of war and PTSD, and what a blessing it is for our town of Dripping Springs to have these resources and this place here.
Yeah.
And we have a large concentration of
we do.
Of not only, I almost said realtors, but that's true too.
Yeah, well,
but
almost as many.
Veterans, and I think it's a wonderful way for us to give back.
Yeah, well, I agree.
Looking forward to hearing from her.
There's a quote on the Patriots Hall website that says 22 veterans a day take their life in the United States. That's terrible, and we need to fix that. Yeah. And we need to do something about it, and Patriots Hall is a step in that right direction. So we're going to take a little break and get Mary Jane in here, so sit tight. We'll be right back.
This show is brought to you in part by the Mallett Integrity Team, serving Dripping Springs, Austin, and the surrounding areas of Central Texas since 2004. When you need the best real estate advice and service, give them a call at 512-829-2062 or email them at mallettintegrityteam.com. And now here's Steve and Michelle.
Welcome, Mary Jane Hetrick. We're excited to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
We were reading through some of your bio, and it makes me tired just reading. You're a very busy lady. So tell us some of the stuff that you're involved in.
I am busy, but all of it is very bucket filling.
Yeah.
And so I think that shows me that right now I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I have a couple of organizations that take most of my bandwidth right now, of course, is Patriots Hall. So I'm looking forward to telling you about that. I've also been with Foster Village since it was an idea in the founder's head a few years ago, and that's going really well. I've been with the Dripping Springs Education Foundation since 2013, and I'd love to mention
You're still on the Ed Foundation? Gosh,
am.
man, you are busy.
I am. It's education, and it's nonprofit, and that's the intersection of my passion. Couple of other things. I've been on the or been a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution for a couple of years now, and that has introduced me to a whole nother group of some amazing women that
I want to know about that too.
Yeah.
That sounds really interesting. But let's kind of go big picture here. When did you move to Dripping Springs?
It's been just over 10 years.
Okay.
And I'm a native of the Hill Country, but my husband's job took us out of state for many years. And we finally got to come back in 2012.
Okay.
So it's the question everybody asks is, which school district do you pick when you know you want to get back to Austin?
And so where'd you go in the interim? You born in the Hill Country? What part of the Hill Country?
So I grew up primarily in a town called Sabinal. It's 2A.
Oh, I don't know where that is.
60 miles southwest of San Antonio on that outer edge of what's considered the Hill Country. And I'm pretty sure I had 19 in my class.
Oh, my gosh.
Both of my parents were school teachers, and we moved to Comfort. It was higher pay for them, and my dad had a chance to be a tennis coach. And
Comfort was big compared to where you grew up?
It felt big. I went from 19 to, I think, 34 in my graduating class.
Wow. That's amazing. Where'd you go to college?
I went to what was then Pan American University.
That's where my dad went. Yep.
Really?
My dad
Where's
went to
that?
Pan Am, down like the valley.
In the valley in
Okay.
Edinburgh. And I played on the tennis team there. And then we became the University of Texas Pan American. And of course, now it's UT of the RGV for Rio Grande Valley.
Okay. And did you go, because you got your doctorate, is that right? And where'd you get that?
From Auburn University,
Okay.
from the time we were stationed in Montgomery.
Okay. That's Alabama, Montgomery, Alabama.
Yes.
Oh, I'm looking at Michelle like she would know.
I know where Auburn is.
I don't know where it is.
War Eagle.
So you moved to Dripping Springs, and what was it? The schools? Was that the reason? The main reason? Was there anything else that brought you here?
Well, Austin, the reason why we wanted to get back to Austin is at the time my kids' only cousins were in the Eanes School District. So we were looking for an area a little more affordable, but with great schools.
Yeah.
And so we landed on Dripping Springs.
It's funny. You're the second guest we've had on in the last couple of weeks that said they came here because it was less expensive. It's hard to believe when the average cost now is like $1 million here in Dripping.
Yeah.
Did you know that? We've busted through $1 million bucks.
We keep tabs on the demographic studies, and I've seen my socioeconomic status fall below the median, which is a little surreal.
That's weird, yeah.
And I'm always telling my kids this is not the norm for the country.
It's funny, isn't it? Yeah, because it doesn't feel like we're out insulated out here, but we really are from what the rest of the country.
Well, we kind of always were this little bedroom community out here in Dripping Springs, and then all of a sudden, I mean, I'm wondering, was there, being on the school board also, do you guys track this? Was there just was there an article about Dripping Springs? Was there an aha moment? Did somebody famous move out here that put us kind of on the map? A lot of people really didn't kind of know where we were, and now all of a sudden we've just exploded. You think it's all the breweries and the wineries and everything else, or what do you think is it that brought everybody here, that brought us the attention?
I really think it's a combination of the reputation of the school district and proximity to Austin. I can remember telling my brother, we're finally moving back to Texas. And I told him we were considering Dripping Springs. And he said, just bear in mind that the growth that has gone 35 north, it's coming 290 west.
It did. And
He wasn't lying.
No, that's true. So what's your favorite part about living in Dripping?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, see?
I think that, pardon me, that it's so service oriented.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of why I've gotten more involved in different things is there are just so many groups of people who want to help in different ways.
So I agree with that. There are a lot of places you can get really plugged in to help the community, but you seem to have a bigger heart for that than most. Why do you think that is?
I think the genesis was in my graduate studies. I did not intend to pursue nonprofit administration. I had gone in originally to the public policy and public administration path to work for a big foundation and kind of affect change at a higher level. And I took an elective in nonprofit administration with someone connected to a domestic violence shelter. And I started doing some volunteering and saw the difference that you can make without necessarily being hands-on directly with those women and children. And also just the concept that the reason we have a nonprofit sector is because the private sector has not determined that a profit margin can be made in tackling whatever issue is, before us.
That's really big. I never thought about that.
And then also that third pillar of our society is the government sector. And if for, government bodies to try to affect change, it has to rise to the level of the median voter. Yeah. And so when neither one of those things happen, in walks the nonprofit sector.
Were your parents really civic minded?
Not as much, but they were both school teachers.
Well, they were teachers, so they had to be at some level.
So I would say that their civic mindedness was focused more on the kids in those little towns I grew up in, like extra tutoring. My dad always had kids over in our garage way back in the day to lift weights.
Really?
We were a little bit of an oddity because we had a power rack. And that doesn't sound strange now, but in 1970s, small town Texas, it was odd.
Oh, that's great.
Well, growing up in a small town myself, it was your social life revolved around church. And I think back to my mother, it was church, it was what the kids were doing, or she was in the junior league in a small little town. So in the junior league, it was the nonprofit, and that's what she did. How she affected change. But I think like what Steve said is you kind of see the bigger picture, and you have many gifts to give. And so you're trying to be plugged in to fill those. I love the way your analogy was filling your bucket. And that's a great way to look at it.
I think that's the reason most people do these sort of civic minded organizations or help run these organizations. So you're the board president of Foster Village. You're the president of the school board. Daughters of the American Revolution.
Wow.
You were a major contributor to setting up the Patriots Hall.
I do tend to dabble in several, even if I'm not on the board. Like, for instance, I was introduced to the brand new executive director of Hill Country Senior Center about a week or two ago. And I think there's such potential there. That's a big demographic group moving to our community. They're following their kids and their grandkids. And I had to kind of put a pause on myself, like, okay, Mary Jane, you don't have that much bandwidth. Just, give some suggestions and try to connect other people.
Do you think, it's one of the things we talk about in real estate. Do you think sometimes you have a hard time saying no?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Yes. It's almost like a skill you have to practice and learn. It's because when you have a servant heart, you want to help everybody that asks. But what you end up doing is if you help 50 people, you might dilute your efforts and not help each of them as much as you could if you focused on 10 people really strongly.
And it's so each organization is different, but it's the same in the sense that you're helping members in our community. And to have you on Foster Village and then Patriots Hall and the Ed Foundation, they are all kind of crossing
connected
paths. Yeah. And so just like your children, you don't have a favorite, right?
That's a beautiful analogy that I have used many times when people, you can see the eyebrow go up of how can you really be passionate about, several organizations. And it is very much like a child. I can
Some days are
cool.
you're more favorite than others, but you love them all the same.
Yeah. Let's talk about a couple of them a little bit more in detail. The foster village. So we helped out with Keller Williams thing there a couple of years ago, and that's an amazing facility and organization.
Well-oiled machine
It
over
really
there.
was,
Like they had their
yeah.
own little store. I use that loosely, but where the parents were able to go in, and it was actually
Yeah.
quite funny watching Steve trying to pick up a pair of pants because people would donate things, and we were putting them in the coordinating gender
Like,
and the
is this,
size.
is this a 3-year-old girl or is this a 6-month-old?
Steve would
little
hold
boy?
it
I
up
don't know.
and he was like, "This must be for a 2-year-old." Like, no, that's a 2-month-old. Steve, it goes over
I
here.
was terrible at that. But how'd you get involved with that? And what's sort of the main mission for Foster Village?
So to me, that was a complete God thing because Crystal and Nick Smith lived down the street from me.
Okay.
They were there first before we moved into High Point 10 years ago. I got to know them as neighbors. They had 3 boys of their own. I saw when they brought this little girl in through foster care, and who is now, a beloved member of their family, and watched her blossom from being scared and now just thriving. And it was Nick first. We were in Mazama Coffee Shop, and he said, "Let me ask you something." And they had been thinking about starting a nonprofit organization, but it was a very daunting thought.
Yeah.
And that they had also thought about going under an existing nonprofit in Austin and what's called an umbrella organization. And I said, "Well, I don't know anything about foster care, but let me take a look," and just started doing some online research. And after listening to what they wanted to do and what was already existing, I said, "I think that you have, a brand new vision. I'm all for not duplicating services in the nonprofit sector, but this was something different." So I said, I can help you. Let's do this.
That's great. And actually, that was one of the things I thought when I was there helping out is that I've never heard of an organization like this. Are there other ones now popping up? Because
Other
it seems
foster villages?
they're, well, yeah, or modeled after that, because that seemed like a brand new concept.
So this is where I'll have to be careful because I'm a very protective board member. There have been some of those existing organizations have started to use terminology that Crystal
Coined.
first coined. Yes. But we very quickly realized that we at least needed to get a trademark. There was somebody in another state calling themselves Foster Village, fill in the blank. So we found some pro bono attorney work that helped us do that. And now we have a dozen affiliates across the nation. What's really cool is the first one was in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Really?
A group of ladies flew here, said, we love what you're doing. We want to replicate it. And we actually, at our last strategic planning meeting, used something that they had come up with for their strategic. So it's like coming full circle.
That's great. And the concept is these kids are taken out of their home, put into foster care. And a lot of times they're just taken from home with not very much. And they can go to Foster Village and get clothes and toiletries, resources and support as they're going through this foster care journey, I guess.
And it can be a couple of different ways. And in fact, when in the infancy, all of these supplies were in the Smith's garage, and then we got a storage space. But people would call and say, I have a 2-year-old little girl who's been placed with me and I have nothing for her. And so within 24 hours, our volunteers delivered, whatever they needed, a bed, a crib, a car seat, age appropriate, season appropriate clothes, diapers. But it goes so much more beyond that because that's the first pillar of equipping, just equipping with the basic necessities.
Yeah.
And then there's connect and advocate. So connect it can feel very isolating. There are a lot of laws, a lot of rules. And so just facilitating that connection with other people who are walking the same walk or had in the past and have all of these lessons learned of everything from the kind of insurance coverage that you can get for your foster placement And then advocating on every level. Crystal I think was a little reticent to put her foot into what might be considered a political arena.
Yeah.
But she's talked to legislators. She's testified before committees. She has one of the primary judges of this area has Crystal on speed dial.
Oh, really?
So
Wow.
making a difference from that angle as well. And then you mentioned, and thank you for volunteering. I did not know that you helped us sort all the supplies. But that was, again, just another part of Crystal's vision, that resource center on Fitzhugh. And so now, if your kids are a little bit older, then they can come in with dignity and pick out what they want.
Oh, yeah. I can tell you for sure, you used the word isolating, and my husband and I were family placement for foster care for several number of years. But when we got him, it was the same thing. We had nothing, and his mother was a drug addict, and everything that CPS had given to us, they said, do not use, throw away. And so we had nothing. And the isolation was deafening.
Yes.
Because you felt like I was the only one going through this. And it was a really hard time for not only for us and for him, but for my other kids, who like, why did we bring this kid in and cause all this disruption? So boy, I could just really see how that, and I have more and more friends and more in the community that are taking on foster care, because it can be a scary and lonely path that you go on, but to feel that you have a community that you can go to.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the whole point, is that there are all these people who might not want to open their own home to a foster placement, but absolutely want to be part of the answer, part of the picture of holistic support.
So how do people support if they can't open their home? And they donate? They donate goods. They donate, obviously, money. It's probably the best thing.
Kids want new things, just like everybody else does too. So that's,
So is it just fostervillage.org, or what's the website?
Fostervillageaustin.org.
Okay. Yeah.
And, there are some laws around that, for instance, mattresses have to be brand new, things like that. But there are other ways that are not just donating money in terms of that wraparound support, like, providing meals, just a meal a week to a family who has opened their home. That can be huge.
Yeah. Huh. We talked a little bit about the school board, and we told you we wouldn't ask you any gotcha questions. Yeah, I know you're not here as in official capacity as a school board president, but I just want to talk about the tone, because in the news, you hear a lot of stuff about people yelling at their school board members, and school board members
after
being
the last couple of years,
kicked out.
Yeah.
And have you noticed a change in tone in the last couple of years?
Well, I think we had a fairly brief time when I was looking around at the audience and thinking, I know where you go to church. I mean, people just got really upset. And I think that one of the most misunderstood aspects of being a school board trustee is that no matter what your background, no matter who supported you, once you were a sitting trustee, you were a trustee for everybody.
Sure.
And, we don't have the luxury of saying, well, my supporters want X.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And then equally as important is all of the laws that govern being a trustee.
Sure.
And there are things that you just can't do. And there's constantly case law that's further defining what can and can't be done. But I will say that after that stretch of a few months that seemed just Twilight Zone-ish, really, people have really kind of come back, it feels like, to me, to try to figure out where the common ground where we can move forward.
Well, that's good.
Well, I think over the last couple of years too, we felt, I heard from so many people that parents felt like their rights as a parent were trying to be stripped from, whether it was school officials, school boards, federal officials, you do this, you do that, you take this shot, you wear this mask, whatever it is. And the people that wouldn't normally show up to a school board meeting were very passionate when it came to their children. And I told
passion is okay.
Passion's
but you
okay.
Can't be mean and
you can't,
nasty to people.
And you can't strip down into your underwear.
Oops.
Yeah. You can't. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I won't involve you in this, Mary Jane, but yeah, I saw this picture in the news of this man, the backside of this
and you
man.
saw me drinking my
yeah. Actually, I didn't see
tea
that
in the background.
Yeah. But Michelle texted a picture to our team group, and I saw it and I looked at it and I go, I know that guy. And
I know.
She's like, he's naked standing there in a Speedo because I used to swim with him, but that was not one of our finest moments, I believe.
No.
Let me tell you, I had an adult child in another state who had a friend in England say, "Is this your mother's school?"
No way. Oh my god.
So it made the world rounds
jeez.
really quickly.
You don't want to be famous for stuff like that.
Everybody's famous in a small town.
Yeah. I want to talk about Patriots Hall here in a second, but you obviously have a heart for leadership and helping out in the community. What are some of the lessons you learned being a leader, on the board for Foster Village and the school board and the Ed Foundation? What are some of the lessons that you learned that some of our listeners would be able to use in their daily life?
It's interesting. I was pre-pandemic. I was asked by the then principal of Sycamore Elementary, to talk to the kids about leadership. And I thought, oh my word, what age range are we talking about? And coming up with those thoughts, I really think it's applicable for everyone, in that if you just look for a need, look who's trying to solve that need.
Yeah.
Is anybody? You can do anything to be part of the solution, and it will build. And other people will join you. And before you know it, you're a leader. And so, I've read a lot of books. I just finished Good to Great by Jim Collins and saw some pretty amazing applicability to both education and the nonprofit sector, even though it was written for corporate America.
Yeah.
But I told Crystal Smith that when I finished the book that he talks about a level 5 leader being a combination of humility, but a determination to get it done, to fulfill the vision, and that's her. And so I don't think she would have ever said, I'm a leader, but I tend to see it in other people, and that's one of my favorite things to do is to just encourage people who have that vision to solve a problem and figure out how to bring other people together. And the other thing that I've learned about myself, I did the Gallup Strength Finders test. Have you heard of that?
I have it.
Yeah.
Do you know yours?
I don't, no, but I've heard of it.
Let's take them.
Yeah, we need
Let's
to
take
do
them.
that.
Okay. I'm going to write it down.
And the reason I want to know yours is because one of my top 5 is individualization. And so I like to know what strengths you have and what strengths you have. And then my mind starts thinking about where could those strengths be plugged in. And then another one of my top 5 is restorative. So that's what can be draining, because I constantly see where there are problems, and then I want to be part of the solution, and I want to use that individualization. It's like, you could be part of the solution, and you can be part.
That's my biggest, I think, fault trait is I'm a fixer. I want to fix everybody.
Yes, that is true.
I've been working on you for 7 years.
And
I'm
you
exhausted.
have made no headway. No headway. What I see a lot in organizations is they have a great concept and a great idea, and they know they want to help, and then they start this thing, and then everybody gets scattered, and instead of being focused on what the original mission was, there's like 47 different things going on, and we have it in a real estate group where people are doing things that are not even close to what the original mission is. And how do you keep people focused on helping the way that the group was originally designed to help?
That's a great question. I think that, with some organizations, they're just blessed to have somebody with perpetual passion, like a Crystal, like a Catherine Chandler for Patriots Hall. But I've been involved with several organizations where we call that mission drift.
Yeah.
and kind of chasing the next shiny thing. My biggest recommendation is almost like mini strategic planning sessions. I'm a big believer. That sounds so old school, but we just did that for Foster Village a week ago, and everybody's so invigorated again. And what you do is you not only focus on what you have already agreed on is your mission and vision, but those primary goals that a year ago or 2 years or 5 years ago, whenever it was, y'all came to agreement that these are the pursuits that will help us accomplish that mission. And so there's nothing like a strategic planning session, even if it's just an hour, if that's all everybody has, to remind of those things, to see what has changed in the environment, certainly post-COVID, right? What are some new opportunities that have come around, in being really honest, as Jim Collins would say, the brutal reality of your facts, and what are those weaknesses? And then, what strengths do you, Steve, bring to the table, and how can those be leveraged to either mitigate threats or take advantage of opportunities? And when you go through a process like that, everybody realizes, oh, yeah, maybe this pursuit is not really accomplishing our mission.
I have a piggyback question on that is then how do you deal with the outliers or the disruptors? The ones
that's a great question.
that are really just
Mary
there.
Jane, I'm terrible at that. When I see, because you always get these personalities that come in and they maybe don't believe in the original mission and they want to deviate it off to something else. I have a really hard time.
Yeah, and then they create kind of if there's a good group, a 10 whatever, and then they have their own little subsect, their own little group where they're just there just to cause disruption and chaos.
How do you deal with that?
Well, I mean, that's probably not one of my strong suits, because I just want to say, really, people, there's so much good that can be done. But I think that one of the tools that could be used is, again, and you don't have to call it strategic planning, but when everybody talks about their why are you a part of this?
Yeah.
It kind of forces a little bit more transparency. And if you can't answer the question in a way that dovetails with the mission, it becomes apparent to everybody else and maybe perhaps neuters a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a line item on your resume. You're not really believing in the mission. You're just using it as a stepping stone for something else, or an attaboy.
I used that line with somebody that I thought was damaging this group. And I said, "Why are you a part of this group?" And she said, "Why are you so mean?" And I was like, I didn't know. And I was a little hurt, and I was confused. I didn't know what to do. And I probably didn't handle it very well after that. But sometimes you just can't get on the same page with somebody.
Why are you so mean, Steve?
I'm very mean. I am a meanie. But I admire you because you I can't successfully say successfully. You've successfully run these groups and kept them. And like the Ed Foundation, geez, I was on the Ed Foundation 10 years ago. And when we raised $30,000, we were like, woohoo. And what are you guys raising now? $500,000? I mean, it's huge what you guys have done.
Yes, I really can't take credit.
Yeah,
We've had really amazing board members the whole time, the whole almost 9 years that I've been on that board. And, even our executive director now, she just is amazing.
Yeah.
And our assistant director has been there almost as long as I have. And I think we've done a really good job of attracting people who do have the right why.
Yes.
And some people who have stepped up to be president of that board. I never have, but the last few presidents we've had have all been amazing. George Gomez is our current president, and that willingness to take a leap of faith that we can do something even bigger.
Yeah.
So, for the longest time, it was innovative teaching grants and student leadership grants. And I remember it was fall of 2019. Actually, it was strategic planning of 2019. And the district superintendent at the time said, "I think we need some mental health counselors." And
within the group.
Yeah. This was before COVID even.
Oh gosh, yeah.
It was the fall before COVID, and there was some robust discussion about this is something very different than what the Ed Foundation had ever done, and pretty quickly coalesced around first of all, it was a direct ask, and that nonprofit exists to support the school district, and so that fall. We had our first mental health counselors in the district. The one at the high school was full within about 6 weeks. And this was...
and that's outside of the counselor arena, like that the schools provide. So it's a service.
And the students had to be referred by a teacher or the school nurse or the academic counselor and have parent permission. And a full caseload. And so then just a few months later, the world shut down. Yeah. And those mental health counselors had to figure out how to pivot and provide those services virtually. And, when I look at my first thought, honestly, was, oh my word, what is happening in Dripping Springs that we need mental health counselors? And so I did what I always do and dive into the research. And I found out that it is not a Dripping Springs problem. It's not a Central Texas problem. Yeah. It is across the state and the nation. And it's one of the number one requests for assistance that you will find in school districts.
Why do you think that is?
Well, there's a lot more research going on to try to figure out. Of course, a lot of people blame the pressures of social media and the comparisons that invokes.
I'm a believer of that, a big believer of that, of what has happened within our social media realm and how everybody has to look, the pressures of the girls to look like, like some unrealistic filter.
Or making a certain amount of money or driving a certain car or taking certain vacations. Yeah,
but it's even where the kids are. Like I know there are apps where I think you can opt out. My child tells me he opts out, but you literally can see where your friends are. If there's a cluster of friends somewhere and you think, well, why wasn't I invited?
Oh, that's not
Snapchat.
good.
Snapchat, you can track your friends or find your friends or something like that where you can, and it happens all the time. When we were at the bachelorette party, the girls were like, oh, well, where's so-and-so? And like, oh, there she is. I'm like, how? Kendall doesn't even let me follow her.
Yeah,
So adults were watching too?
Well, the kids, it was the bachelorette party, so it was the girls that were watching.
I can totally see that, though. If you're a member of a group and there's 6 of them over there having lunch somewhere and nobody texted you or called you, that would hurt their feelings.
I remember one time, this was like 3 years ago, and I had to go run to the storage for something, and you called me, and there was something going on in the background. You go, are you getting your nails done? And I was like, I'm so glad you don't track me. Like you could hear this in the background. I am getting my nails done.
Yeah, you don't think I can track you.
It's for mental health. You probably do.
Yeah. So let's talk about Patriots Hall. On the website, I saw a quote, and I actually don't remember who said it, but it said, Texans take care of their own.
I think Catherine found that somewhere.
Did she? Yeah.
And it's so true. And I don't know if you've seen, we have a veteran, Jeanette Spain, who has some talent in creating videos, and she has interviewed so many people, not only on the board, but some local supporters. And on our Facebook page right now, you can see a little snippet, a little teaser of the interview. Are you pulling it up?
Well, I was looking at, kind of how it got started, and it all was kind of an idea of Shorty, right? Was it a letter?
Yes, a hand-drawn flyer.
It's on the website. I saw it on.
It was. I think it's Why Dripping Springs. Yeah.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
We'll post a picture of that on the interview.
Yeah, we have that framed in the first meeting house. But Catherine called me. We had our lives had connected before. Our daughters were in the same grade, and then she was a point person for that beautification of Mercer Street, and specifically that stone tree. And so we had conversations about that. But anyway, she saw that flyer. I did not see Shorty passing it out, but she did. And she said, we can do something about this. And at the time, what she was thinking was, we'll just try to find an acre of land somewhere that could be donated and maybe a nice Mueller building, because I don't know if you know the story of our VFW and American Legion posts, but they were at what I think was an old firehouse at 12 and 290.
Yeah. I was going to say that some of our newer people that live here might not know. It was kind of a ratty old building right there at the corner of Mercer and 12 on the Triangle. And that was torn down, 4 or 5 years ago, I guess.
Yes. Also, depending on how long you've lived here, you might remember the floating pumpkins down.
Yeah,
we talk about that
once in a while. Yeah.
And so that building was condemned and torn down, and they were nomadic and were at the Catholic Church for a while. And of course, most recently, we're in the Stevenson building, another, we'll just say historic, but yes, dilapidated building, certainly not a place of respect. But, we kind of encountered one roadblock after another. And looking back, I just think that was God's hand of there's something bigger that you're supposed to do. So kind of crazy that if we had been able to just find an acre of land, we'd have a Mueller building and that would be it. There would be no Patriots Hall.
I remember being at the ribbon cutting that Saturday, and I was watching your face and all of the people that showed up. And I think you were just like, oh my goodness. There were just so many people. It was standing room only. There were people outside because you couldn't get inside.
Right.
And that was a beautiful thing to witness.
Was. That was capturing the best of humanity of this area. Everybody's so happy for our veterans. And then I think I chased a rabbit trail, as I so often do, but I was saying on our Facebook page, there's an interview clip with Chad Fleming. And he's, one of the most famous veterans in the country who lives right here.
I didn't know that.
And so for someone like him to be so fully supportive of this, it just, when things get tough, that is very inspirational to me.
Oh.
My son, Tate, that was the thing that Tate donated.
It was a flight suit or something.
It was the rescue swimmer swims the wetsuit, and every rescue swimmer, or the majority of the rescue swimmers up until his class, they signed that wetsuit. And I was telling this story, I think it was to Grainer. I'm trying to remember who I was telling this story to. So he was looking at the suit, and it had this the O2 tanks and stuff on it. And I said, yeah, I took that on the airplane back. And I didn't realize until I came back home, I was like, this actually had all this equipment all over it. Like, I'm sure it probably wasn't supposed to do that.
Lucky you didn't get arrested. So the things that Patriots Hall are doing for veterans, what kind of services, what kind of things are offered there?
So, it's a multi-phase project, and phase one was fulfilling that original promise for a meeting house for our local VFW and American Legion posts and in the land. Super exciting. Just a week ago, we were able to pay off the note on the land.
Wow.
Thanks to the final push was a grant from Hays County.
Wow.
And
nice.
So at some point, we'll burn the mortgage paper, so to speak.
And it's a 1,200 square foot meeting house, and on 10 acres.
10 acres.
10 acres.
Was the land donated?
Yeah. No, but what's interesting is that Catherine and I had been looking for land. We had had a couple of realtors take us out to several places. And like I said, one thing after another, it just didn't work out. And she and I had a little powwow scheduled for, again, at Mazama. And I got there first, and she comes in and she's like, Mary Jane, have you seen the sign on this, this corner lot at South Canyonwood? It just said for sale by owner, just as nondescript as could be. And she said, should we call the number? I'm like, sure. So right there on the patio, we're calling. The owner of the property, Tim Decker, answered the phone, and he just happened to be visiting his dad, who is a veteran at a veterans home in California. And so this was before things got really crazy with land, but I still absolutely think that the purpose of our inquiry made us go to the top of the list.
Wow.
And so we actually gave him a tour. He drove in to meet us to sign the release of lien after we had paid off the land.
Oh, wow.
And he got to come see the meeting house.
Wow, that's really
full
cool.
circle moment.
What a great story. And what's planned next?
So in phase 2 is what we're calling our wellness center. It's 800 square feet. And we started with one local physician, and now another has stepped up to say that they want to volunteer their time for consultations and referrals to help veterans who are just trying to navigate the system. And so the first is our Dr. Lewis.
Dr. Lewis, we had him on here. Kevin.
Oh, yeah.
You've had him on, okay.
Yes, we have. He's a good friend of ours.
Yes. And then we've gotten a lot of requests for help with VA claims assistance. And Jude Prather with the Hays County Veterans Office actually came over and used the meeting house when it was vacant for that purpose.
Oh, nice.
But that will be a dedicated facility for both of those purposes. And we're still, it's sponsored. John Paul DeJoria wanted money to go directly to that. He's a veteran himself.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Pretty amazing human being. And so we're still in some permitting phase, both for that. And then phase 3 is the big actual Patriots Hall that'll be 7,100 square feet.
Oh, that's great. There's a rendering of it. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Wow.
So how can people help out? So you're on phase 1, and how many phases? There's phase 4. What's below? Is that the final?
Well,
the final phase?
The final phase is the actual yearly upkeep. You know, our board can't do it all.
Yeah.
But we're still very much in the fundraising phase. And of course, as you know, it's like with school construction or anything else, costs have just skyrocketed. So it caused some delays, even though we had the funds because of just supply chain issues. It was crazy. Like Catherine was ready to drive to Wisconsin or wherever just to get a door we needed. And but the whole 5 phases originally pre-pandemic was $5.9 million. And now, and this is after multiple iterations of really, are you sure? It'll be closer to $9 million. Ooh. So we still need $3.5 million, but we've been blown away by the support through the pandemic. So I know we can get there.
Well, is that $5.5 million you've raised? Is that what did the math real quick?
Yes, so we're at 5.4.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. This community gives so generously of its time and resources. But we're gonna run out of time here. But what's your advice for somebody that wants to get plugged in and help in our community? What's your advice for them?
I would love to meet them.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things to do, really. And I think that I have successfully convinced some of my fellow board members that, that cliche of a rising tide lifts all boats, absolutely true. And I have seen where I can help somebody connect to a donor where I know they have a personal passion. And it's not an organization that I'm personally affiliated with, but they're so grateful that when something comes along their radar screen and they can reciprocate, they do.
Right.
And also, it's kind of like you said, with having children, and you love them all, there are also donors who can, be equally passionate about more than one area. But if I run across anybody who says, man, I just wish that I could help, alleviate X or be a part of Y. Well, if I don't know the person, I'll help you find them. So
there's a lot of needs out there.
I think it's very refreshing to meet somebody in the community that's so humble as you are, but you also take whatever it is, whether it's someone's time, their treasures, or their talent, and help that person get plugged into that, because we all have something to give back. Whether right now, whether you're in the phase of raising your children and you can just write a check, well, you can help them get plugged in with that. And there's plenty of organizations here in Dripping Springs, and you have such a wide variety of passions that are filling your bucket, but you're also, you're giving so much back. You've only been here a decade. And look, one person has given so much back to Dripping Springs, and we are so grateful as residents of Dripping Springs. Wow, we are very excited.
It's funny to me because sometimes people like you don't realize your image in the community. Like every time your name is brought up in conversation,
we're just
people
like,
she's so sweet. She's such a hard worker.
Yes.
She does all this. So it is nice for you to know that we all look up to you and admire you for what you've done.
Very
for our
refreshing.
community. So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I have to tell you a little kind of little nugget that I thought was so cool, because you don't pick a community because you have, ancestors who lived here.
Yeah.
I remember my dad telling me when we were looking for a community, he's like, Grandma Terrell, and he starts talking. I'm like, okay, Dad, we're focused on the kids in the school district. And I had been here a couple of years. I was at a Pound House event and just mentioned that anecdotally. And they said, well, have you talked to Marie Bassett? She knows all the history of this town. And so I connected with her, and she knew more about my ancestors than I did.
no way.
And so I need to do more research. But yeah, I have ancestors buried in Phillips Cemetery.
Oh,
and,
I saw
And Phillips Cemetery is the one at
the one in downtown Dripping.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome.
Wow, how full circle that is too.
And you didn't know that when you moved here, other than maybe you had somebody that had
I knew a
lived here.
name.
Yeah.
I knew very few details, and actually, they're not really happy details. I had several family members die in an Onion Creek flood, and that was,
Oh my gosh.
way back before there were any kinds of alerts
Yeah.
that the flood is coming. But still, it feels like we're supposed to be here at least for now.
And you're making a huge difference, and we really appreciate what you do for the community.
Thank you.
Well, thank
I
you so much
appreciate
for
that.
coming in.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank
so
you for
much.
having me.
My pleasure.
This show is brought to you in part by the Mallett Integrity Team, serving Dripping Springs, Austin, and the surrounding areas of Central Texas since 2004. When you need the best real estate advice and service, give them a call at 512-829-2062 or email them at mallettintegrityteam.com.
Thanks for listening.
If you have comments or feedback, please email us at mallettandmichelle@gmail.com.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Mallett and Michelle.
Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher.
Please follow us and leave a review.
Thanks again for listening.